The government continues to make record amounts of money from taxes. It's unstoppable. There's no denying that this money is squandered. The more money the government makes, the more that seems to be wasted. On the other hand, the real rich, the billionaires, they don't pay tax. They have every possible loophole, and you can barely get a few dollars back at tax time if you are lucky. This is how corrupt the system truly is. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we are going to talk about free money for everyone, and then I want to connect that into a few other points. Beginning with this. First topic is the universal basic income. One by one, some of the biggest names in tech are publicly supporting the idea of giving cash handouts to all Americans. That is the suggestion of Stuart Butterfield, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, and others. Essentially what they're saying is, no matter what, let's give everyone a paycheck. That paycheck would then provide them with the minimum they'll need to pump that back into the economy, to be able to find a way to make ends meet using this money. There are already pilot projects that are going on in different areas across the world, small towns essentially. They give them a bunch of money, every single person, and they try to see, do they save the money under their mattress? Are they investing the money? Are they spending the money? What's happening? Are they not working as a result? So this ultimately is the test that they're providing, and that is a pilot project to see, can we do this on a national level? Is it beneficial? That's the way it's going. You know, an individual like Elon Musk says we will need a UBI simply because we're putting people out of work with robotics, with automation. And as a result, we will have no choice but to give people money. Mark Zuckerberg says that let's be wonderful and generous and let's give everyone money. There's sort of two different sides to that. He says that it will just be a wonderful thing just to give people money. Well, look, when you have all those billions of dollars, you sort of have a different perspective on money and everything it's worth. You know, it's really easy up on those high horses up there that they can say, you know, let's give free money. But who's giving the money? I mean, they get the tax incentives and tax loopholes and everything else. You and I can barely get anything. We are the ones paying the taxes. We are the ones that fund the UBI, which will then be given back to us. I mean, what a wasteful system that they've set up. That we will pay into our taxes, whether it's being taxed by the mile, whether it's being put on our gasoline, whether it is sales taxes, or income taxes, or property taxes, or death taxes, or taxes, or carbon taxes, or taxes of taxes. And you see where I'm going with that. And essentially, then you funnel its way through the system and it makes its way through all that bureaucracy, wasting almost all of it. And then you get the little drippings and the little crumbs that are left. That's how taxes work. That's why it's a stupid system. How about let me keep all of my money, all of it, every single dime of it. I'll do what I want, and then you'll see how much money I put back into this system. Because that's the way it works. If you have more money, you end up spending it. Maybe it's something like you do improvements at home. Maybe it's that you bought that cottage that you've always wanted, a vacation home in a sunny place. Maybe anything. It could be anything. But you're spending the money, essentially. You might save it to some degree, but then you save it perhaps to buy something. So that's the way it works. But if you do it through the taxation system, it's always keeping a tight grip around your throat, and you will always struggle to breathe. So let me take a step forward here and look at this. 6.5 million Americans paid a fine rather than signing up for Obamacare coverage. Think about that for a second. Millions and millions of people would rather pay a fine, because it is a tax, Obamacare is a tax, than get into Obamacare. That's how sick and sorry this system is. That people would rather pay into this pay a fine. Sure, why not? For my first time home buyers plan, they make you pay back essentially if you use an RRSP, which is like a 401k, you have to pay it back. If you don't, then they penalize you for that over a period of years, essentially, right? Until you pay that money you were supposed to pay back in the first place. So for myself, I'm not paying back into it. I don't want that money sitting inside of there. The only reason you use that is basically to defer tax into a later period of time. That's the only thing. So doing so, the way they've done this, is a very, very stupid way to try and get people to pay into the healthcare system. And ultimately, it doesn't do anything for healthcare itself. People think, look, you're giving healthcare. They know the talking points. You're giving healthcare to people who didn't have it before. What they don't tell everybody is how everyone's premiums increased dramatically. Some people experienced increases multiple times. All right, moving on. Remember a few years ago where France decided to attempt to impose a 75% tax rate on certain people, certain amounts of income. Okay, they're rich people, let's say. So-called rich people. They're making a lot of money. They're the ones that have to pay the tax. Well, if somebody's getting paid, I don't know about you, but if Canada, for example, started taxing me at 75%, I'm taking every penny that I earn and I'm going to make it disappear. That's the way it is. If you tax people at 75%, they will go away. They will hide. That's the way any taxation system works. Historically, it's been said that the serfs would revolt after a 10% of taxation. If you took any more than 10% away from these slaves, they would revolt. 10%. Now we're looking at a 10% like we're yelling and screaming at companies like Google and Apple and everybody else for paying around that rate or less. And that would have been that mark that they would have revolted at. We've really come a long way. This here is a suggestion, anyway, talking about the fact that perhaps $31 trillion, up to $31 trillion, has leaked out of scores of countries into secretive jurisdictions such as Switzerland and the Cayman Islands with the help of the private banks, to basically put that offshore, try to hide that money. Now, Switzerland gave in with all their numbered accounts back in the financial crisis. Cayman Islands, off the top of my head, I don't remember if they gave in, but they were pressuring them. I know that. But there are other countries as well. We'll talk about that more in a moment. Essentially, what they believe is that many of these billionaires and millionaires are keeping their wealth offshore. But I would suggest to you that if a country is going to take away your money, do you not feel that you would want to keep it? I mean, isn't that just a natural thing? If you're working, you work a 9-to-5 job. Look, a lot of people, they work in their 12 months. Think about it like this. You work from January to December, and you have to work all the way up until, let's say, May for free. And then you get to keep the rest of that. Now think about that. Like, when you think about it in that way, not just a percentage of how much your income is, that you're working all the way for several months, however much, your tax bracket is, that you have to work for a few months for free, giving all your money to the government so that they can then use it against you to, all the different methods they do so with the NSA. Let's say, for example, look at this. There are definitely places around the world like Panama, like Dominica, like Belize, which provide people with tax havens. I'm not telling you to do anything, okay? I'm just suggesting that there are people out there who are finding a way to take their money out of their country, take their income, and move it offshore. But the question is, why are they doing this? Because the taxes are too high. If taxes were very low, nobody would bother. Nobody would bother. Because it's just not worth it. Keep the money where it is. Maybe you want to geographically, diversify where your holdings are. But the average person, even let's say, the small business owner, they probably would never bother. And in the same way, you'd be able to keep that money within your country. You would have more money for the banks, not that we need any more money for these banks, and they would be able to make money on the transaction fees. They would make money on the bank fees that they charge people every month, the loans that you would take out, and everything else. If it's closer to home, I feel like people would probably spend it more, and that would be able to generate more into the economy. But no, you force them overseas. Very, very big mistake. This is a whole chart talking about the distribution of wealth, recorded versus hidden. And I thought it was a little funny because, it doesn't show that extreme difference between what is actually being recorded and what is hidden. I would suggest to everyone that a lot of money by the corporations is put offshore. I don't know that, necessarily any of these estimations they've given us are accurate. All I know is that any chance someone has to put their money offshore, they do so. And it is a result of the government getting too pushy. They are finding their way into every facet, like I mentioned, all the different taxes that we have. And they're making a big mistake by doing that if their intention is to get a lot of money. Shifting gears. U.S. Embassy employees in Cuba possibly subject to an acoustic attack. So these people had to actually be sent home. They're trying to investigate. The U.S. is asking Cuba what the hell is going on. I just thought it was interesting to note. I don't have any other information on it. This is coming from CNN, the most truth-telling network in the world, so I don't know, but I just wanted to mention it. Let's move to the next one. Unarmed Russian Air Force jet overflies the Pentagon, Capitol, and the CIA. This is apparently allowed to happen regularly with these different countries. They've signed treaties that allow them to fly over, do reconnaissance. They're allowed to do infrared and imaging. They're allowed to do all this over top, and here they are doing so. I think this has a direct, although they've done this regularly, I think that it's happening now specifically because of all this instigation and talking back and forth that's been happening between Russia, Syria, North Korea, China, and everything that's sort of been happening. I think that this perhaps is a result of that. They want some updated imagery. Appalling weapon of violence. So look at this here. Acid attacks crime wave sees Britain's top cop and Home Secretary back, increasing stop and search powers. They want to be able to take you, down the street. They're coming there. They think, okay, you have a backpack on, therefore you need to be stopped right here. They will do everything to you. You know that it's a matter of time before they're taking the rubber glove and they're putting it where the sun don't shine. That's the way it is. I mean, they do this already, but this is the power, the ability to go beyond just the CCTV cameras, just the NSA spying on you, and to put their hands directly on you. Like I said, they do this already, but here it is in law where they could just do so just because they feel like it. That's what this allows. They take an event and they capitalize on it. Doesn't matter if it's real, doesn't matter at all. What simply matters is the fact that they are using this as an opportunity. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Last but not least, Canadian soldiers are heading to the border. And what are they doing? Canadian soldiers are helping out those seeking asylum. So many people are basically fleeing from the US into Canada, and Canada is now housing them all. Almost 100 troops will be used to set up the campsite, which will consist of modular tent, shelters, and lighting and heating, and may temporarily accommodate close to 500 people. I think that what's happening here is a result of what's happening in the US. They've made their way through. They realize they don't want to stay there, and so Canada comes with open arms. And there's sort of the ethical debate on it. That's not important, I believe, for what I talk about at the Money GPS. What I'm talking about here is that Canada has its own economic problems and simply cannot afford to take in more refugees. We're already struggling as it is, oil being subdued. Nobody wants what Canada can export right now at this time. And so we are basically living off of the Federal Reserve's bailout from back in 2009, 2010 and on. And we are basically living in a facade, just like most other countries. But don't worry about it. We'll just hand out some free money, and we will use the universal basic income. We can include these asylum seekers in that. Why not? It's just our tax money. No big deal. It's all free. Anyway, if you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. And last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. The first book is about the 4 asset classes and how to profit from it, whereas the new book gets into the tax incentives. I get into how to reduce your monthly expenses, becoming self-sufficient, solar panels, everything else. If you want to check those out, links are in the description. You can flip through them at Amazon. Take care.